It's been a wild year as we've brought you over 50 episodes featuring over 1,000 Tesla stories, including crashes, self-driving videos, and unbelievable road rage incidents. We've crunched the numbers and found the videos our viewers enjoyed the most, then put them together into this mega episode. Enjoy and have a very happy new year! Paul was driving his Cybertruck on a highway near Ukiah, California, when a stranger intentionally struck his pickup, forcing it to go off-road and roll over. Paul told us he had no previous interaction with the offending driver, and his Teslacam footage proves that's true. Paul had just finished overtaking a slower-moving SUV before merging back into the exit lane. A pickup approached from behind, passed Paul on the left, then cut him off and started slowing down. Paul merged left to pass it, and that's when the driver of the pickup intentionally sideswiped him, sending his Cybertruck off the road at highway speed. The Cybertruck rolled over before stopping. While Paul was hanging upside down, the Cybertruck called 911 automatically and Paul was connected with an emergency dispatcher. Paul was transported via ambulance after reporting back pain. He told us that after seeing his Teslacam footage, the California Highway Patrol charged the pickup driver with vehicular assault. Personally, I would have charged him with attempted murder, but that's just me. As far as anyone can tell, the only reason for this attack was that Paul was driving a Cybertruck. Sadly, the rollover totaled his Cybertruck, and our resident collision expert Winston was able to find the wreck available for sale online. The photos reveal the extent of the damage. Kyler activated his turn signal after noticing a semi-truck entering the highway, but the driver of a pickup in the other lane sped up in an attempt to block Kyler's merge. Kyler correctly judged the gap next to him and merged anyway, which triggered the pickup driver. After tailgating Kyler's Tesla, he sped up next to Kyler, yelling at him before exchanging hand gestures. The pickup driver then took things even further when he tried to push Kyler's Tesla off the highway multiple times. Once in front of Kyler, he brake-checked him and repeatedly blocked his attempts to pass him. Kyler told us he could hear the pickup driver yelling at him to pull over so they could handle this like men. Kyler is 20 years old and told us he had no interest in pulling over to argue with some angry dad, so he kept driving, hidden behind his Tesla's tinted windows as the pickup driver eventually left the highway. Steve was on his way home after a long workday, but as he drove down a highway, he had no idea what was about to happen. As he glanced in his rearview mirror, he noticed the headlights of a Tesla headed toward him at breakneck speed. The speeding Model 3 smashed into Steve's Tesla so hard that it was shoved into the concrete barrier on the right before careening across the entire 3-lane highway and slamming into the median barrier. Steve's Tesla was stuck in the breakdown lane with no way to get out of the highway. Eventually, a state worker helped him across the highway after law enforcement arrived. Here's where the story gets really crazy. The driver of the Model 3 pinned the blame for the collision on a vehicle driving in the center lane. They claimed they'd been unable to change lanes to avoid a collision because that other car had been in the way. The cops cited the Tesla driver for failing to brake to avoid a collision, but they said it would be difficult to prove exactly what had happened since they hadn't witnessed the collision for themselves. That's where Steve's Teslacam footage saved the day. Interestingly enough, the other Tesla driver said they had never heard of the Teslacam feature. That just goes to show you should never assume a Tesla driver has their Teslacam in operation. Jayle was driving his Tesla Model X down the passing lane of a New Jersey highway when he merged to the travel lane to let a Toyota pass him. Around the same time, a Jeep driver was swerving in and out of traffic and cutting off other drivers. A different Toyota ahead of Jayle in the travel lane began slowing down, so he merged back into the passing lane to overtake it. That's when the Jeep driver caught up to Jayle, but instead of slowing down, he decided to pass both Jayle and the Toyota on the right. As the Jeep driver merged into the travel lane, the Jeep made contact with an Audi that was also changing lanes. The Jeep then dove into the Tesla, shoving it into the median barrier. The Jeep was then sent airborne as it also smashed into the median barrier head-on. Incredibly, nobody was harmed in the collision. Even more incredibly, nobody was willing to accept responsibility for it. The estimate to repair Jayle's Model X came to $73,000 US. The Jeep driver's insurance provider accepted responsibility, but the Jeep driver only had the mandatory $25,000 of liability coverage. Jaylay is now trying to get the rest of the repair bill covered by his own insurance provider. This anonymous submitter rents his Tesla out on Turo, or he used to until he was summoned to a junkyard to collect the remains of his Model Y. He immediately retrieved the flash drive and discovered this Teslacam footage, which might be the wildest footage we've ever featured on Wham Baam Teslacam. Incredibly, both of the Tesla's occupants were unhurt, but the same can't be said for the car itself. Unsurprisingly, it was totaled. Thankfully, our submitter said Turo quickly paid out the cash value of his Tesla. He has no idea why this happened, and the driver never provided him with any explanation. One thing we can all agree on after seeing this footage is that Tesla's safety is unmatched. Luke was supervising full self-driving in his Model Y. As his car approached a yellow light, it began to slow down. The Tesla came to a gentle chauffeur stop as the traffic light turned red. Suddenly, a Jeep slammed directly into it from behind. Luke went to check on the Jeep driver, and incredibly, nobody was injured by the impact. The Jeep driver told Luke that he'd been distracted when the collision occurred. Do you think FSD should have handled the situation differently? Post your ideas in the comments below. One thing is certain, the collision could have been avoided if the Jeep had been equipped with active safety features like automatic emergency braking or forward collision warning. Our submitter was driving his Model 3 in West Valley City, Utah when the unthinkable happened. He felt a sudden impact to the side of his Tesla before the driver's door was ripped open. His car careened down the road and smashed into a barrier before finally stopping. As he sat in his newly obliterated Tesla, the other driver walked up and leaned into the wreck to talk to him, and this is where the story takes a surprising turn. The guy accused our submitter of running a red light, blaming the collision on him. Our submitter was still stunned after the 360-degree spin and wasn't sure what had happened as the other driver continued to accuse him of causing the incident. The driver of a semi-truck used his truck to block the road before helping our submitter out of his Tesla. The whole time, the other driver just kept accusing him of running a red light. When our submitter finally got a chance to play back his Teslacam video on the screen, it clearly proved our submitter hadn't run a red light. This could only mean the other driver had run his red light and was trying to project his own mistake on our submitter. When police responded, the Teslacam footage came in clutch, proving our submitter was innocent. He purchased a brand new Model 3 Performance the day after the collision, and he told us he's loving the refreshed Model 3. Huge shout out to the Staker Parson trucker who helped him out. Witz had just dropped his pregnant wife off at the tint shop to pick up her Tesla Model Y. This footage is from her drive home, but her new car never made it. Minutes after leaving the shop, she was driving down an on-ramp when she slowed down and stopped for traffic waiting at the ramp light. The driver around 300 feet behind her wasn't paying attention before rear-ending her at between 50 and 60 miles per hour. Her Tesla proceeded to slam into a barrier before colliding with another Model Y in front of her. Thankfully, the other driver had swerved to the right just before the collision, reducing the force of the impact. She immediately called Witz in a panic, screaming, "They hit me! They hit me! I was in a car accident!" She then hung up to call 911 after being prompted to do so by her phone and her watch, which had both detected the collision. Witz was stunned. His pregnant wife had just been in a collision and he still had no idea where she was, until he realized he could pull up her car's location in his Tesla app. Once he determined her location, he raced to the scene, but traffic had backed up on the on-ramp. So he used the shoulder to reach the collision scene just 2 minutes after the police. Thankfully, everyone was okay. Witz's wife was taken to the emergency room so she and the baby could be checked out, and amazingly, they were both safe and sound. The repair estimate for the Tesla skyrocketed above $35,000 US, making it a total loss. Witz is thankful for the Teslacam footage from both Teslas that were involved. He told us the driver responsible tried to say that the drivers ahead of him had stopped without warning. The clear video evidence confirms that his excessive speed and inattentiveness is what actually caused the collision. And Witz told us it's clear he was focused on something other than driving. Courtney was in the center lane of the George Bush Tollway in Rowlett, Texas, with full self-driving engaged when FSD suddenly changed lanes to the right. This lane change was made for a reason, and Courtney told us she couldn't have reacted fast enough to what happened next. Thankfully, FSD was ready and deftly piloted her Tesla around a black Nissan before steering clear of the wrecked cars that rolled into her lane. A car had come to an abrupt halt in the middle of the highway, prompting another driver to stop behind it. The driver of a white Model Y had failed to react before rear-ending the second vehicle at full speed. Courtney pulled over on the shoulder and assisted the elderly Tesla driver, later sharing this video with the involved drivers who all now have one thing in common: they're all searching for the driver of the white car who had mysteriously stopped in the middle of the highway, causing this four-vehicle collision. We tried enhancing frames from the Teslacam footage using AI tools, and the license plate number we came up with returned to a Hyundai Elantra, which doesn't seem right. Then again, we've been wrong once before. Let us know in the comments if you can help out the victims by identifying this car. Picture this. Nick's friend Josh had never been in a Tesla before, let alone a performance model, so Nick swapping seats to let Josh drive ended up being a huge mistake. Naturally, Josh wanted to test full self-driving. Nick told him, "Don't touch anything when it's active and pay attention." 2 seconds later, Josh floored the juice pedal into a corner, and that's when everything went wrong. About halfway through the turn, FSD deactivated, sending the Tesla hurtling into a building. Obviously, FSD isn't meant to be used with manual full throttle acceleration, especially while cornering. Thankfully, nobody was injured, and it looks like the retaining wall redirected the car into the strongest part of the building. This prevented more extensive damage to the structure, but the building's corner cut straight through the Tesla instead. Surprisingly, the front lid was in perfect shape, but the right corner of the car, including the headlight, basically exploded. When Nick asked Josh what happened, he said he'd seen Nick using the accelerator when he'd been using FSD earlier, so he'd been doing the same. Nick explained, a little too late, that he'd only been giving slight throttle input to keep FSD from driving slowly, but not enough to cause a loss of control. Of course, that isn't something someone would know if they had no experience using FSD. Sadly, the Tesla was totaled, but Nick ended up buying the car back about a month later at a fraction of the original cost. Incredibly, there was no major frame damage. Nick swapped out the front bumper cover, passenger fender, and the damaged suspension. He did most of the work himself, other than painting the body panels. Overall, the situation was disappointing, but considering that everyone was okay and Nick now has unlimited rights to talk smack to his friend, things seem to have worked out for the best. This submitter was taking her kids to school when disaster struck. A pickup driver ran his red light, squeezing between other vehicles. By the time our submitter saw the truck, it was too late for her to stop. All her airbags deployed, and after the dust had settled and she'd made sure her kids were okay, our submitter walked over to check on the pickup driver. When she asked if he was okay, he told her that he was. He then confirmed he'd been aware the light was red. He never asked if she was okay or apologized for causing the collision. After the pickup driver showed no concern for her safety or for breaking the law, she wasn't surprised by what he did next. She said that when the police arrived, he lied and claimed she'd caused the collision by speeding. Justice was served instantly when our submitter showed the police her Teslacam footage, making the collision investigation open and shut. That was far from the end of the drama, though. After she filed an insurance claim, she found out the pickup driver was uninsured. Her Tesla was totaled by the collision, and her own insurance provider paid for it under her uninsured motorist coverage. If you thought that was crazy, buckle up, because things don't get any better from here. Murali was driving on I-90 when traffic ahead began slowing down. Sadly, the driver of a vehicle behind him wasn't paying any attention. The driver failed to notice the stopping traffic before plowing into the back of an SUV. The SUV swerved across the entire highway to the shoulder, then turned back toward the passing lane. Incredibly, the SUV managed not to collide with any other vehicles. Murali called 911 and reported the collision, and it was later featured on the news and mentioned as the cause of a massive traffic delay in that morning's commute. Thankfully, there were no reported injuries, but all 3 lanes of the highway remained blocked for a couple of hours before everything was cleaned up. Drew was driving his Cybertruck, taking his wife to pick up her new Model S at a Tesla service center. He was driving slowly due to dust after a dust storm warning had been issued. Suddenly, visibility dropped to 0, and when Drew slowed down and stopped, chaos erupted. The driver behind him never slowed down before smashing into the back of Drew's Cybertruck. Then, another driver ran into his Cybertruck's front end. The Cybertruck's pyro fuse blew, disconnecting the high-voltage batteries, so once the dust had settled, Drew needed help pushing his pickup truck to the side of the road. The 48-volt battery also disconnected, disabling all the truck's electronics, and here's the sticky twist. The Cybertruck's bed was filled with honeybees, and without power, he had no way to get it open. While there is a manual release for the tailgate in the event of power loss, that release is on the inside, so it's really only meant to allow someone trapped in the bed to escape. When the tow truck arrived to transport the Cybertruck, we have to assume the driver was shocked to find out it was filled with bees. The tow truck driver gave Drew and his wife a ride to the service center where they were dropping off the Cybertruck, and technicians were able to use a battery jumper to open the truck's tailgate. The bees were unharmed, so they loaded them into the Model S they were picking up before leaving the Cybertruck behind at the service center. Drew doesn't know yet how much repairs will cost. The impact bent the tow hitch, and he isn't sure if there's any frame damage. Based on the photos, it seems like the truck held up amazingly well considering those heavy impacts. It sure seems like the Cybertruck really was designed to survive the apocalypse. Katie was driving home from work when a distracted Audi driver drifted into her lane and practically climbed the side of her Tesla Model 3. The Audi's front wheel made contact with Katie's rear wheel, launching the Audi into the air and forcing her Tesla to veer off the road and onto a sidewalk. Amazingly, nobody was injured. The Audi's side curtain airbags deployed as it nearly rolled over, and Katie's Tesla automatically called emergency services. However, since there were no injuries, first responders weren't sent to the scene. The Tesla sustained damage to the rear bumper cover, quarter panel, and driver's side wheels. In addition, the Audi's tire left a mark on the Tesla's driver's door. Both vehicles were towed away and later totaled by the insurance companies who found the Audi driver responsible for the collision. Banny was driving Jules's Tesla Model X to a Detroit car show in poor weather conditions when disaster struck. He was keeping with the flow of traffic when the Tesla suddenly lost control and spun out. Disaster followed soon after in the form of 3 huge semi-trucks. Incredibly, the first trucker missed him by aiming for the guardrail, but the second truck struck the Tesla, deploying the side curtain airbags. Thankfully, nobody was injured. Police were called, and after they arrived and collected statements from witnesses, Banny was found responsible for the collision. When Jules filed an insurance claim, his insurance provider disagreed with the police after seeing this video, declaring that Banny was blameless in the situation. Instead, they determined that the trucker who'd rear-ended him was at fault, and this kicked off a lengthy battle between the involved parties. Eventually, Jules's insurance provider agreed to pay for repairs, but when the bill climbed over $20,000, they chose to total the Model X rather than repair it. This emitter admits to taking his eyes off the road for a few seconds, a mistake that sent his Tesla to the scrapyard. When he accelerated around a slowing Lexus, he overcorrected, spinning completely around before jumping a curb and smashing into a parked Toyota. His Tesla immediately contacted emergency services on its own. Thankfully, he was able to walk away without a scratch after first responders swarmed the area. His insurance provider totaled the Tesla, and a month of kicking himself later, he replaced it with the Model Y Performance. This emitter had lent his Model Y out to his father when he got a notification on his phone that a collision had been detected. His father had been driving home from work when an oncoming pickup drifted across the center line and headed straight toward him. The pickup impacted the Tesla's fender before ricocheting into the woods. The collision spun the Tesla practically in place, leaving it facing the opposite direction. One of the front wheels, with suspension parts attached, was ripped off the car and left in the road. The Tesla automatically notified emergency services, and first responders wasted no time. Firefighters, paramedics, and police all arrived at the scene within minutes. Both drivers were able to walk away from the collision without any serious injuries, but they both went to the hospital to be checked out just in case. Our submitter has made an insurance claim, but no repair estimate has been completed yet. Based on what we've seen, we wouldn't be surprised if the Tesla is deemed a total loss. He was joyriding his new Model 3 Performance on a back road when he took a corner a little too fast. Hunter's door was jammed shut, forcing him to use the passenger door to get out. A super nice guy who lived up the mountain saw what happened and came down in his tractor, hooked up his Tesla, and pulled it out. I hope you're sitting down because what Hunter told us next will shock you. He's a repeat submitter to our channel, and the incident we just showed you happened less than a year after the last video he sent us. A year ago, we featured this video on Wham Baam Teslacam showing the time when Hunter totaled a Model 3 Performance. Shortly after that, he replaced it with a Model 3 Long Range, but it was totaled in Hurricane Helene. Next, he tried his luck with a Ford F-150 Lightning, but it was totaled in a collision less than a month ago. He then got a new Model 3 Performance, and that's the car we just watched him drive off the road. Hunter told us he's considering traveling around on foot from now on. For all of this, Hunter will be the first submitter to be inducted into the Wham Baam Hall of Fame. Congratulations, I guess? A big box of Wham Baam merch is headed your way. Now, please, Hunter, do us all a favor, drive safe. A Honda driver failed to stop at a stop sign, failed to yield to traffic, and failed to see this submitter's Tesla. Check out the aftermath of the Honda bump that totaled his Tesla Model S. Let's watch the Teslacam footage so we can see what happened. He was driving his Model S in Lakeville, Minnesota on a main road and at a steady speed. He told us his Tesla sounded an alarm while engaging automatic emergency braking when a Honda driver failed to yield even though he had the right of way. He tried to swerve to avoid a collision, but he didn't have enough time to react. The damage was so severe, his Tesla was disabled and had to be towed away. The other driver admitted fault at the scene, and the police report also confirms she'd failed to yield. Our submitter filed an insurance claim and is waiting to find out if his Tesla will be repaired or deemed a total loss. Sorry, buddy, you've been Honda bumped. Nick was renting out his Foundation Series Cybertruck. 2 hours into the rental, he received the dreaded phone call. His Cybertruck had been totaled after being rear-ended by a box truck. Let's take a look at the Teslacam footage and find out exactly what happened. Nick's renter had slowed down for an SUV making a right turn, but the driver of the box truck behind him wasn't paying attention and didn't notice until it was too late. Incredibly, nobody was hurt in this brutal collision. When police responded, the officers were amazed at how little the Cybertruck had moved after the impact. Instead of getting sent flying, the rear of the Cybertruck had crumpled like an accordion, perfectly protecting the driver by safely absorbing the energy of the collision. If anyone still thinks the Cybertruck doesn't have crumple zones, this video ought to prove it once and for all. The Cybertruck's battery fuses blew, cutting power from the main battery pack to prevent any electrocutions. After the estimated repair cost exceeded $60,000 US, the pickup truck was totaled. Nick pointed out that if the box truck had been equipped with advanced safety features like his Cybertruck was, this expensive mistake might have been avoided. Alan was using full self-driving in his Tesla Model 3, and he had no idea it was about to have its capabilities pushed to their limits. He was in the travel lane of a Texas highway when a pickup pulling a trailer merged into traffic going much slower than other vehicles in the exit lane. When a line of drivers engaged in communal tailgating approached the pickup and trailer, chaos ensued. When the blue car merged to go around the pickup and trailer, the SUV driver following it braked a little, then released the brakes before realizing what was happening and braking hard. The driver of the Toyota SUV tailgating the Ford Explorer didn't have time to stop, so they swerved into the travel lane and right in front of Alan. FSD slammed on the brakes, but it couldn't avoid a collision altogether because a white pickup truck was approaching from behind in the passing lane. The white pickup was struck by the Toyota, sending both vehicles spinning. The pickup spun all the way across the highway and off the road, narrowly avoiding a collision with the pickup pulling the trailer. Incredibly, everyone involved was okay, but the same can't be said for their vehicles. All the airbags in the Tesla deployed, filling it with smoke, and the view out of the windshield was blocked by the airbags and the front lid. Alan told us a very nice person stopped and helped him get his door open. Alan grabbed his SSD before exiting the car, and when the police arrived, he was able to show them what had happened. Police cited the Toyota driver after determining she was responsible for the entire collision. Noah's father was driving down a highway when an oncoming box truck collided with the median barrier. Noah's dad told us it looked like the truck's tire exploded, and he was afraid it might be launched over the barrier and into oncoming traffic, which would have been a very dangerous situation. Miraculously, this didn't happen. Noah's dad pulled over where it was safe to do so and called the California Highway Patrol. Thankfully, an officer was parked just down the road. This video is a good reminder about how vulnerable road workers are. Just imagine if the truck's tire had exploded a split second sooner. Ashley was driving east on I-30 when a Volvo driver entering the highway panicked before running over a chunk of metal instead of straddling it. The 3-pound, 5-ounce piece of metal measuring 8 inches by 22 inches went flying through the air, first scraping the hood of Ashley's Tesla before puncturing the windshield and lodging into the dashboard. Ashley told us the impact against the windshield sounded like an explosion, and it spewed shards of glass of various sizes throughout the cabin. Somehow she kept her calm and safely maneuvered off the highway, stopping in the parking lot of a nearby gas station. A Good Samaritan checked on her and helped her call 911. Emergency operators wouldn't dispatch first responders since nobody was seriously injured. Miraculously, Ashley didn't get any glass in her eyes, but she told us she was picking pieces of glass out of her scalp for several weeks. Repairs to her Tesla took 3 weeks and totaled over $7,700 US. Michael was on his way home and driving down a San Diego highway when he approached an intersection. As he proceeded through his green light, the drunk driver of a Honda ran their red light. The two vehicles collided, sending Michael's Tesla careening off the road and into an electrical box. Michael safely exited his vehicle before laying down in shock. After paramedics checked him out, he spoke with responding police officers. Michael was taken to the hospital in an ambulance for seatbelt bruises, but once he was there, he realized he'd forgotten his wallet in his Tesla. He immediately sent word back to the scene, but his wallet was nowhere to be found. Someone had stolen it from the wreckage. Stealing a wallet from someone who'd just been taken away in an ambulance? That's a new low. Some people have no shame. Michael's Tesla was totaled, but the insurance claim process took so long he had to hire a personal injury lawyer to get it sorted out. The lawyer got him an expedited payout after a few more months, and he used the settlement to purchase a new Model Y. This submitter was driving his brand new Model 3 Performance at 85 miles per hour on I-79 near Warrendale, Pennsylvania. It was snowing, but the snow wasn't sticking. Instead, it was turning into a large amount of standing water on the highway. After suddenly hitting a puddle, our submitter began hydroplaning. He spun off the road, thankfully missing any road signs or light poles. Considering the speed at which he hit the grass, it's a miracle the car didn't roll over. He was able to drive the Tesla away with nothing more than cosmetic damage, which he confirmed after taking it through the nearest car wash. A few body panels had come loose, and the underside of the car had scooped up some dirt. Ironically, he had gotten a steering alignment just 5 hours before this incident. It looks like he'll need another one. He returned to the scene the next day. After seeing these photos, we're still shocked the car stayed upright. He may be the world's luckiest Tesla owner. Parsa was supervising full self-driving when his Tesla stopped for a traffic light, as did the Model S behind him. The driver of a Ford, however, did not. It turned out the Ford driver had fallen asleep before smashing into the Model S at full speed. The Ford climbed the side of the Tesla before it crashed into several other vehicles. A total of 5 vehicles were involved in the collision, but incredibly nobody was hurt. This incident is a great example of a time when FSD, or even advanced driver assistance, could have prevented a collision from occurring at all. Kent purchased a salvaged Model Y, and when he powered it on, he discovered this footage that reveals how it ended up in the scrapyard. The driver had been driving in whiteout conditions, and when visibility dropped nearly to zero, he began overtaking a box truck. Suddenly, the vehicle lost control and smashed into the truck. While nobody was hurt by the collision, the same cannot be said about the Tesla. The vehicle was totaled before its wreckage was sold at an insurance auction. There was extensive damage to the suspension, wheels, fender, and bumper cover. After buying the wreck for $13,000, Kent repaired it himself for another $3,400. He told us he was surprised how easy it was to work on the Tesla. We love hearing stories of wrecked Teslas getting put back on the road, especially since we usually only see them getting taken off the road. This submitter was driving his brand new Model Y in Sarasota, Florida, when a pickup driver suddenly turned across his lane. Our submitter tried to swerve to avoid a head-on collision, but without enough time to react, the impact sent his Tesla straight into an SUV, making this a 3-vehicle collision. The Tesla's side airbag protected our submitter's head from smashing into the window before he crawled out of the passenger door, which he opened using the emergency mechanical release. The police responded quickly, and they were impressed that our submitter was able to walk away from the wreck without needing medical attention. Sadly, the vehicles involved didn't fare nearly as well. All 3 had to be towed away, but not far, as the collision had happened right in front of a collision center. Our submitter filed an insurance claim, but because his Model Y was brand new, there weren't any comparable used vehicles on the market yet. Without any comps, the insurance company couldn't calculate the car's market value, so they just went ahead and declared the car totaled and cut our submitter a check for the value of a new one. As Arseni stopped at a red light in Norristown, Pennsylvania, he suddenly heard an engine roaring and tires screaming. The driver of a Lexus had peeled out of street-side parking before running a red light and getting T-boned. The out-of-control car smashed into Arseni's stationary Tesla hard enough to spin it around 180 degrees. If you thought that was shocking, keep watching because here's where the story really gets interesting. The driver of the Lexus jumped out wearing a mask before dropping something that looked like a gun, then fled on foot after picking it back up. When police arrived, they informed Arseni that the Lexus was stolen, and that night it had been involved in some less than legal activities. Amazingly, no people were injured in this 3-vehicle collision, but the same can't be said for the vehicles involved. All 3 were totaled in the wreck. After Arseni filed an insurance claim, he found out that the combined damage estimate for all 3 vehicles was just shy of $100,000. His Tesla accounted for $36,000 of that, which is why the insurance company chose to total it. This emitter was eating a sandwich in his parked Tesla when his friend pointed out a shirtless man riding by on a bicycle before looking back as if he was trying to evade someone. Seconds later, another man wearing a bike helmet went running past them, yelling, "Stop him, he stole my bike." Our submitter saw that nobody else was reacting, so he felt the need to intervene. He sped off to offer his assistance to the bike owner in chasing down the thief. At first, the cyclist had difficulty opening his Tesla's unique door handles. Eventually, he managed to get the door open, and the chase was on. Our submitter cautiously followed the thief as safely and legally as he could. At one point, the cyclist tried to get out and confront the thief, but he sped off once more. Eventually, the bike thief gave up and dumped the bike before its owner confronted him and gave him a piece of his mind. Our submitter told us he was worried the situation might turn violent, so he drove off with his door still open to avoid getting involved. Sadly, in his attempt to put some distance between himself and the two men, he collided with a curb and rashed one of his wheels. Well, nobody said being a hero didn't come with a price. Well done to our submitter. He's a real MVP. Scott and his wife were heading home from completing a region in the all-Florida shop hop when their relaxing trip suddenly took a turn for the worse. A pickup truck driver blew through a stop sign at high speed before T-boning an oncoming SUV. Scott immediately stopped and hit the save button, then headed for the overturned SUV while his wife called 911. Two other drivers stopped, one of them checking on the pickup driver and verifying that he was okay. As Scott approached the overturned SUV, fearful of what he might find inside, he saw the driver was safely out of the vehicle and ran to check her for injuries. The Walton County Police and paramedics were on scene in under 5 minutes. Impressive considering the rural area where this happened. Both drivers were treated and transported to local hospitals. Scott told the responding officers that he had Teslacam footage, and one of the officers played the video straight from the USB drive using his patrol car's laptop. All 3 officers were amazed by the detailed footage that had been captured. Scott said none of them had seen a Teslacam video before. The pickup driver was found responsible since he'd clearly ignored a stop sign as he blew through the intersection, causing the collision. Submitter was driving his Model Y in Amsterdam. Remember that fact, it'll be important later on. After turning onto a 2-lane road, he decided to overtake the 2 slower cars ahead of him. Right as he passed the Volkswagen, that driver decided he also wanted to overtake the car ahead of him. The VW sideswiped the Tesla, effectively pit maneuvering it and sending it onto the nearby train tracks. Our submitter told us that when the VW struck his wheel, the car bounced into the air and he never had a chance to countersteer. All involved drivers stopped. After verifying that nobody was hurt, they contacted the police and started assessing the situation. The 20-year-old driver of the black Volkswagen refused to accept responsibility even after our submitter showed him his Teslacam video. Our submitter told us he wasn't angry. In fact, he was glad he was alone in the car and that he hadn't hit a train, a pole, or any pedestrians. When police arrived, our submitter assumed his Teslacam video would make this an open and shut case, but that's where the story took what he calls an Amsterdam twist. The police put the blame on the driver of the third car, the one they'd both tried to overtake and the one our submitter crashed into after being sideswiped. All 3 drivers were required to give samples of their saliva to test for any intoxicating substances, for which the Opel driver tested positive, sparking massive news coverage. Tesla stuck on the tram tracks, causing massive delays by a driver under the influence. Our submitter told us he spoke with the Opel driver and he mentioned he'd been smoking something the day before, which caused the positive reading. The next day, he was cleared by the police of any wrongdoing. With him now deemed not responsible, the blame was shifted to the VW driver, who was ultimately found at fault for the collision. Our submitter's Tesla, which was just a few weeks old, was totaled by his insurance provider, and he immediately ordered a new one. He also told us he works for the local electric company, and now his coworkers tease him for trying to charge his Tesla on the train tracks. Kai was giving his daughter a ride home after a visit to the stable when they noticed the driver of a Range Rover who you might say wasn't so stable. Seconds later, the Range Rover crashed into 2 other vehicles before rolling over and landing back on its wheels. Kai immediately stopped and called the police before checking on everyone involved. Incredibly, nobody was injured. When the police arrived, they were very glad that Kai had captured the collision on video, and he told us the incident was later featured in the local newspaper. It reported that the Range Rover driver was intoxicated and unlicensed. Gee, who could have seen that coming? This anonymous submitter was sitting at a red light in Santa Clara, California. What he didn't realize at the time was that the BMW driver next to him wanted to race. He was so eager to get the jump on our submitter that he ran the red light, and our submitter still didn't realize they were racing. When the light turned green, our submitter began driving. As they met up again at the next red light, the BMW driver was quick to inform our submitter that he had won. The guy was pointing and laughing at our submitter, who still didn't know what was going on. When this light turned green, the BMW driver took off again at first, but then he started brake checking our submitter. At this point, he realized something was up, so he passed the BMW as they approached another traffic light. The BMW driver was still laughing and pointing at our submitter. And if you think that's weird, just keep watching. The BMW driver rolled down his window, then threw a coin at our submitter's Tesla as the light turned green. Our submitter decided now was the time to make his getaway, so he floored the juice pedal, but it wasn't long before they approached another red light. This time, the BMW driver pulled in front of our submitter to block him before continuing to throw coins at his Tesla as if it was a wishing well. The situation threatened to turn violent when the BMW driver got out of his car and started shouting at our submitter, ordering him to get out and fight with him. As most of you know, we're excellent lip readers here at Wham Baam Teslacam, so here's the translation. Do you need something? No, you don't. You have turn signals, but I don't. I'm wishing for turn signals. Our submitter told us he'll be forwarding his footage to the police, and hopefully they can make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else. Before we roll this next video, we know some people don't believe Teslas will make evasive maneuvers like this on their own, but Rish told us that's exactly what happened. Being in a collision in traffic sucks, but getting rear-ended by the FBI is a whole new level of nightmare. This is exactly what happened to Jason as he was driving home from work on I-695 near Baltimore. Rush hour traffic was heavy as usual when it suddenly came to an abrupt halt. Jason was paying attention and was able to stop in time, but the FBI agent behind him must have been distracted as he slammed into the back of Jason's brand new Model Y. As both drivers pulled over, the other driver activated his vehicle's emergency lighting. Jason thought he'd been rear-ended by a cop car, but he soon discovered it was filled with FBI agents. Jason called 911, and when the Maryland State Police arrived, he showed the trooper his Teslacam footage. He also said it was obvious who was at fault in this collision: the men in black. Jason sent this video to the FBI and they accepted responsibility, but that's when he found out that government vehicles aren't insured the same way that privately owned vehicles are. The federal government self-insures their vehicles, so Jason had to pay for his own repairs before submitting a damage claim to the FBI for reimbursement. Instead of going through all that, Jason had his own insurance provider repair his Tesla, and they'll now go after the feds to pay for the damage on his behalf. After a tough negotiation between the repair shop and the insurance company, the final bill to fix his Model Y came to just over $12,000 US. When Keith pulled into a cell phone store parking lot, he found two police cars that were blocking in a suspect vehicle. When Keith asked to get through so he could enter the store, officers denied his request. Keith overheard officers saying a suspect was asleep in the car. He went to get some food while he waited for them to clear the scene, but he had no idea what would happen next. After several more officers arrived, the suspect woke up and tried to escape by reversing. One of the cops pushed his vehicle into the cell phone store. The suspect then tried to escape on foot, but an officer deployed a taser and took him down right next to Keith's Tesla. Keith provided a copy of his Teslacam footage to the police after an officer noticed the Tesla's camera was pointed right where the guy had gone down. Keith provided a statement to a local news reporter, and they proceeded to chop his remarks down to just a couple of seconds of him saying he was thankful his Tesla hadn't been damaged. Another angle was posted in the Seattle subreddit by user President Joe. This footage came from the mattress store right next to the cell phone store. According to the news station, the suspect was charged with eluding a police vehicle, possessing a stolen motor vehicle, driving under the influence of drugs, 2 counts of felony assault, and the sale and delivery of methamphetamine. Sounds like he had an eventful afternoon. Chris and his wife have been living in Mexico for over 3 years now, and he told us this night was the first time they'd ever been afraid for their safety. They'd just gotten in their Model Y after dinner at a restaurant and were discussing their plans for tomorrow when a vehicle pulled up behind their Tesla, boxing them in. 3 guys jumped out of the vehicle. One approached the Tesla on the passenger side while another approached on the driver's side. Both of them were armed, and they started banging on the front windows and shouting at Chris and his wife to get out. Chris's wife told Chris not to comply, but instead to do whatever it would take to get them out of danger. Chris shifted into reverse and floored the juice pedal, fully aware the attacker's vehicle was behind them. Their Tesla was also fully aware, and it engaged the automatic emergency braking and stopped Chris from backing up any farther. Chris then pulled forward to begin a 3-point turn since an island ahead of him was stopping him from just driving forward. The next time Chris started backing up, the rear of his Model Y collided with the attacker's door, creating a path to safety. As they drove off, Chris could hear the attackers shooting, but he thinks they must have been shooting airsoft guns since there were no bullet holes in his Tesla. Minutes later, the car full of criminals pursued them down the street, the damage to the passenger door clearly visible. Thankfully, Chris was able to lose them in the dense traffic. Chris reported the incident to the police after they got home, and they told him the vehicle the attackers had used had just been stolen. They also told Chris the attackers were probably cartel members. He told us he's glad these criminal geniuses didn't know how their Tesla's door handles worked because the car had been unlocked at the time of the attempted robbery. Chris has made an insurance claim and is now waiting for a repair estimate to fix his damaged trunk lid. This submitter was enjoying the corners of a road famous with motorcycle riders with 3 of his friends in his Tesla Model 3. The name of the road translates to the Road of 17 Turns. You're about to see why this submitter asked to remain anonymous. We absolutely do not condone the driving you're about to see, but we're hoping our viewers will learn not to follow this submitter's example. He told us he was showing off his Tesla's all-wheel drive to his friends, along with his driving skills. He claims he's not a bad driver, but he also admitted he was going too fast for these corners. The speed limit on this road is about 30 miles per hour, but our submitter told us he was going about 55 miles per hour. He told us the Tesla was handling the turns well and even drifting around some of the corners. But in the last one, he lost control and smacked into a curb. The impact damaged the front and back wheels, their control arms, part of the front motor, the front bumper cover, the side skirt, and more. Thankfully, nobody was injured and the airbags didn't deploy. Our submitter summoned 24-hour roadside assistance, and they towed his Tesla away from the scene. After a grand total of 7 collision experts examined the Model 3, they determined it could be repaired. Fixing it cost the equivalent of over $23,000 US. As he approached a red light, the SUV ahead of him drove straight through it. The driver of a Lexus making a left turn T-boned the SUV, sending it flipping before it ended up getting stuck on a guardrail. Peter immediately stopped to render aid to the very confused older couple in the SUV. Thankfully, his Teslacam footage was able to clear up what had happened. Police and firefighters responded to the scene of the collision, but thankfully everyone involved was okay. Tommy was cruising behind a red Jeep in a construction zone with autopilot engaged when traffic came to an abrupt stop. The driver of the red Jeep tried to swerve around a black Lexus before rear-ending it. Tommy managed to avoid hitting both vehicles, but sadly, the driver behind him didn't react quickly enough and rear-ended Tommy's Tesla, shoving it into the black Lexus. Immediately following the collision, the interior of his Tesla started filling with smoke because the pyro fuse had gone off, severing the high-voltage cables. Tommy lowered the windows while the Tesla automatically contacted emergency services. Thankfully, nobody was seriously injured. The Tesla was sadly totaled, and almost 3 months later, Tommy is still waiting for an insurance settlement. His family members, who also have app access to his Tesla, all got phone notifications that the car had suffered a catastrophic failure and was calling 911. At the time, they had no idea what Tommy's condition was, but thankfully he was fine. Tommy hadn't had a USB drive plugged into his Tesla and was worried that footage might not have been captured. But when he reached out to Tesla, they were able to retrieve it and send him a copy. Good save, Tesla! Christian jumped into his Cybertruck and headed home to his wife right after a tornado hit and taken out all the power in the neighborhood. He told us he was going about 40 miles per hour, but this was still too fast for him to see very well in complete darkness. With the road extremely wet from heavy rain, his Cybertruck began to hydroplane after he slammed on the brakes, and the front of the pickup sheared through a fallen cedar power pole. Christian told us his Cybertruck immediately pulled over to the side of the road, preventing him from continuing to drive while keeping all the other systems operational. With the power in the area completely out, he had to leave his Cybertruck and walk out of all the downed power poles and power lines. First responders were completely tied up dealing with the aftermath of the tornado, and the 911 operator told Christian it would be a while before anyone could come help him. The initial repair estimate, based only on a visual assessment, was $14,000, but the assessor warned Christian that the estimate would increase once Tesla was able to take the Cybertruck's front end apart, which they weren't able to do for 3 weeks. Boffa was driving his Model Y in Orlando, Florida, when he was viciously attacked by a road-raging pickup driver. The whole thing started as Boffa was driving along in the right lane, and the driver of a Toyota Tacoma with Texas plates approached from behind in an attempt to pass him. Boffa accelerated hard to block the Tacoma driver, an action he was not happy about. The Tacoma driver tailgated Boffa for a while, eventually driving past and brake-checking him. Boffa immediately swerved to go around him, and that's when things escalated quickly. The Tacoma driver used the stripe section of the road to speed up next to Boffa before throwing things at his Tesla. This passing attempt was unsuccessful, and eventually they both approached and stopped for a red light. As both vehicles came to a stop, the other driver got out of his pickup truck and approached Boffa's Tesla before banging on the windows and demanding he lower them. Boffa had his 3-month-old child with him, sitting right next to the window the pickup driver was banging on, so he felt disinclined to acquiesce to his request. Besides, the way he kept his right hand at the 4 o'clock position of his waistband should make anyone nervous. Boffa told us the guy spewed profanities before finally returning to his pickup truck. When the light turned green, Boffa turned a corner and sped away. He's thankful nobody was harmed in what was clearly a tense situation. He also said that nothing was damaged, other than the Tacoma driver's ego, of course. He sent along shoutouts for his wife and son, who both love watching Wham Baam Teslacam. Jim's niece was driving his Model Y as she approached an intersection at around 50 miles per hour. Suddenly, the driver of a red vehicle made a left turn without properly checking for oncoming traffic. She tried to swerve at the last moment, but she wasn't able to avoid a collision. The driver who hit her was taken care of by her parents, who arrived quickly since they lived nearby. Jim used the insurance settlement of $34,000, along with the proceeds from selling his Toyota Tacoma, to buy a brand new Cybertruck. Welcome to the Triangle Club, Jim. Sean was driving down a road in Forsyth, Georgia, when, all of a sudden, he saw a car go barreling off the exit ramp and across grass before hitting a white SUV. The speeding car was being followed by police as it continued before striking a ditch and finally becoming disabled. A man jumped out of the car and took off on foot with 2 officers in hot pursuit. The suspect ran past Sean's Model Y before jumping a fence, running across a road, and disappearing behind some railroad tracks. Sean told us it was a wild police chase scene, and that in the end, it looked like they apprehended the suspect, but he isn't sure, as it was hard to see behind the train tracks. His Teslacam also got a view of the wrecked car, and it sure looks like it took a beating. We also have to mention that having the new B-pillar camera angles is awesome. For comparison, here's the repeater camera angle from the same incident. Eric was waiting to turn left across oncoming traffic when the drivers of 2 pickup trucks left him a gap and waved him through. What neither of those drivers realized was that a car was about to speed around them in the right turn lane. The speeding car smashed into Eric before slamming into an SUV. Incredibly, nobody was hurt, but the same can't be said of the vehicles involved. When police arrived, they determined that Eric was responsible. His Tesla had shut down, so he wasn't able to show them his Teslacam footage to prove what had really happened. When he made an insurance claim, the insurance company came to the same conclusion. The collision must have been Eric's fault. Eric filed a data request with Tesla online, and they sent him the collision data taken from his vehicle, including this video footage. Thanks to his Teslacam, he was able to prove his innocence to the police, and he was able to get an insurance settlement that was greater than what he paid for the car in the first place. Teslacam for the win. Both Pietro and the driver ahead of him were stuck behind a slow driver, and Pietro was waiting for an opportunity to pass. Once he determined it was safe, he tried to pass both vehicles, but the driver ahead of him did the same thing at the same time. Their vehicles collided, and the impact shoved Pietro's Tesla into a barrier. Pietro filed an insurance claim, and his Model Y was deemed a total loss. He's now waiting for the arrival of a brand new replacement. Dylan noticed a vehicle approaching him from behind, and he told us he moved into the left lane to get out of the other driver's way, but the other driver did the same thing. The other driver sideswiped him, then tried to flee the scene by running a red light. Dylan wasn't about to let him get away with that and took off in pursuit of the other driver. Thankfully, the other driver eventually stopped. Dylan called the police, and they facilitated their exchange of insurance information. Dylan's rims were damaged, and his driver's side fender was dented and scraped. After seeing this video, the other driver's insurance provider paid to repair all the damage to Dylan's Tesla. Reedy bought a Model Y from a wrecking yard after it was totaled in a collision. When he managed to start it up, he found Teslacam footage revealing how it had been wrecked. The Tesla had been driving down a highway in Atlanta, Georgia, when it slowed down for an SUV in the travel lane. All of a sudden, the driver of another SUV behind the Tesla swerved, overcorrected, and crashed into it. The impact sent it crashing into the median barrier. Reedy told us he thinks the SUV driver must have been distracted, but he doesn't know that for sure. What he does know is that nobody was injured in the collision, and the insurance company totaled the car instead of repairing it, which is how Reedy ended up with it. Now he's working on getting it back on the road. As the oncoming vehicle passed, the little girl suddenly bolted across the street. Our submitter told us his Tesla's A-pillar blocked his view, and he wasn't able to see her until she was directly in front of his car. Automatic emergency braking brought the car to a sudden halt before our submitter had any chance to react to what was happening. He told us he and his son Aiden watch Wham Bam videos together every evening before bedtime. And he's thankful that his Tesla's safety features made it possible for this little girl to be able to say goodnight to her parents before bedtime. As a Tesla employee, he knows all about Tesla's safety features, but he had no idea that his morning commute would be putting them to the test. Everything seemed fine on this beautiful morning until he noticed something strange up in the sky in his peripheral vision. By the time he'd realized what was happening, he was too close to the falling tree, and it was too late for him to do anything about it. After his Tesla had been struck by the tree, a group of workmen who'd been felling the tree immediately rushed over to assist him. They apologized profusely and told him the tree had fallen in the wrong direction. Thankfully, our submitter wasn't seriously injured, and the responding police officer noted this was the first time he'd ever responded to an incident like this that hadn't involved a fatality. The Tesla's roof and upper frame were destroyed, but our submitter was alive. Even though his car was totaled, I think it's safe to assume that he'll be replacing it with another Tesla. Kyle was driving his Model Y in Ames, Iowa. He asked us to shout out the Cyclones. He was on his way to Iowa State University when a black pickup truck turned in front of a Ford Explorer before it clipped the pickup. Kyle stopped and called 911 to report the collision. When police arrived, he gave them a statement along with a copy of his Teslacam footage. He told us the Explorer driver was another college student. Who do you think was at fault in this collision? Traffic in the left lane was backed up, but the right lane was clear. The Explorer driver should have been able to proceed ahead at full speed. Kyle told us the Explorer driver had frozen up, but it sure looks like she reacted quickly to us. She just had no hope of stopping once she realized the pickup was failing to yield. What do you think? Kyle was driving through an intersection with a green light when the driver of a Hummer H3 made a left turn, failing to yield. And by failing to yield, we mean she failed to notice Kyle at all. He made an evasive maneuver to the right, but the Hummer still struck the driver's side of his Tesla. When the Tesla's wheel made contact with the Hummer, it was ripped clean off. And it wasn't just any wheel, it was a Martian wheel. Police were summoned to the scene, and the vehicle ended up being towed away. Kyle is now filing an insurance claim with the other driver's insurance provider. Imagine you're the detective investigating this collision. Who would you say was responsible, Kyle or the Hummer driver? If you guessed the Hummer driver was in the wrong, you're correct. Not only was she committing a crime against common sense by driving that ridiculous gas guzzler, she was also found fully responsible for causing the collision. Nick was driving his Tesla when he noticed an oncoming SUV behaving erratically. The SUV crossed the grass median before taking down a road sign, and Nick was able to turn just in the nick of time to avoid a head-on collision. The SUV then continued before colliding with another SUV that had been just behind Nick. The driver of the black SUV said later she'd pulled as far as she could to the right, but she wasn't able to get out of the way of the other SUV, which had been traveling around 60 miles per hour at the time of the impact. Bystanders called first responders, and paramedics and firefighters arrived a few minutes later. Amazingly, neither driver was seriously hurt. Nick can't know for sure, but he suspects the driver of the out-of-control SUV might have blacked out before the wreck. The other driver's insurance provider later contacted Nick to request a copy of his Teslacam footage, which he was happy to provide. We have to congratulate Nick for his quick thinking and driving skill. His awareness and decisive reaction kept him from being involved in this terrible collision. This video is from a different Luke. Watch what happened while his Tesla was motoring along at 70 miles per hour. The driver of a large black pickup truck crashed into both Luke and another pickup. Luke's left side camera captured the entire event, continuing to record even after two brutal impacts. The pickup driver, who Luke told us was intoxicated, first hit a white pickup truck, then both of them collided with Luke's Tesla. Luke estimates the black pickup was going well over 100 miles per hour, and he also pointed out it was in the HOV lane even though the driver was alone in his pickup. Thankfully, nobody was seriously injured. All three drivers pulled over and called the police, and when they arrived, Luke says they arrested the driver of the black pickup for DUI at 10:55 in the morning. Luke pointed out that his front camera shows his Tesla correcting itself back into its lane to prevent another collision. Don't drink and drive. Steve was getting on a highway in Leeds when a Volkswagen driver behind him threw a wrench into the works. Steve glanced in his rearview mirror, unsure what had happened. Reviewing his Teslacam footage later revealed the VW driver made a plethora of errors. While he was next to the truck, he sped up instead of slowing down, forcing himself to use the shoulder. When he decided to merge, he wasn't just in the trucker's blind spot, he actually pit maneuvered himself off the front of the truck before spinning across the entire highway. After slamming into the median barrier, he ricocheted back across every lane before ending up on the shoulder. Sheesh. Remember when we told you about a Tesla owner who helped us stop a bike thief a couple of weeks ago? Sadly, no good deed goes unpunished, and he curb rashed one of his wheels in the process. Well, we've got a wholesome follow-up to that story. A guy named Sam reached out to us and said that if our submitter went to his repair shop, he'd fix the wheel for him for free. He didn't ask us to shout out his body shop, but we're going to anyway. He works for Carrosserie Auto Prestige in Montreal, and they'll even do remote diagnostics for free. As she proceeded through an intersection with a green light, an oncoming driver making an unprotected left turn failed to yield, smashing head-on into Dakota's Tesla. The other driver immediately began claiming that Dakota had run a red light. She tried to calm him down and explain that her light had been green. Eventually, the police were summoned to the scene. The responding officer was very excited when he realized Dakota had been driving a Tesla. He told the other driver to be quiet before requesting Dakota's Teslacam drive. He then plugged it into his laptop, watched the video, and with that, the case was closed. Teslacam for the win! Sadly, Dakota's Tesla was totaled, but we're pretty sure she probably ordered another one to replace it. Ronald was picking up his brand new Model Y at the Tesla Service Center in Plano, Texas, and, no kidding, he captured his first Wham Bam moment before even leaving the parking lot. Right in front of him, the driver of a Model X Plaid pulled into the Tesla Service Center, but not quite all the way, as she was blocked by a Model S ahead of her. The automatic door closed on her rear window not once, not twice, but 4 times before she finally pulled forward, but still not far enough. The next time the door came down, it scraped her trunk lid before getting stuck on her rear bumper cover. Ronald provided copies of his Teslacam footage to the service center employees, as well as to the Model X driver. Who do you think ended up paying for the repairs? Post your opinion in the comments. This anonymous submitter from USA Baby sent us this video from when his Model Y was totaled. Those tire tracks are where his Tesla went straight into the woods and took out a tree. Let's take a look at the tape. He was on his way to the gym at 4 a.m. one morning, and he told us the roads were icy, which can also be seen in the video. As he headed into a bend in the road, he lost control and slid off the road, continuing for 30 feet before slamming into a tree at 40 miles per hour. Remarkably unhurt, our submitter called 911, but the police had trouble locating his Tesla buried in the woods. It took them around 10 minutes to find him in the 10-degree weather. The airbags had deployed, rendering the car undrivable, and it was later deemed a total loss. Our submitter took a rideshare to the gym so he could still get in his workout. USA, baby! He did visit the collision site later, realizing then how far into the trees his Tesla had traveled. It's incredible he not only walked away from the wreck, but he even managed to make it to the gym and work out. That's another win for the incredible safety of Tesla vehicles. Our submitter was driving his Tesla down a highway one rainy day when he hit a pothole before losing control. His Tesla slid across every lane of the highway before colliding with a short section of guardrail that was protecting a large pole. Thankfully, our submitter was uninjured, and he was able to summon first responders to the scene. Sadly, his Model 3 ended up in the scrapyard after the impact caused massive frame damage. The damage we can see in these photos is only the tip of the iceberg, but things could have been much worse if the car hadn't hit the guardrail. Imagine if it had gone careening down the hill or even rolling over. Thomas's father had just picked up someone from the airport in the Tesla he'd owned for less than a week. His temporary license plate was almost blocking the rear camera, but we can still make out a speeding red Corvette approaching fast. The Corvette passed him on the right and spun out of control before smashing into the median barrier. Thomas's father stopped and checked on the Corvette driver, who was miraculously unhurt. He waited with him for 10 minutes until first responders arrived. When Thomas's father came home, he asked Thomas to help him pull his Teslacam footage. And when he watched it, Thomas almost couldn't believe his eyes. Thomas helped him send the footage to us, but this isn't his first Wham Bam submission. When the traffic light in front of Charles turned green, he noticed other drivers running their red lights and waited until they were done recklessly breaking the law before proceeding. Sadly for him, one driver ran the red light way later than any of the others. Charles told us his Teslacam footage makes it look like he punched the juice pedal intentionally to ram the other driver, but that's not at all what happened. In reality, he simply didn't see the pickup truck, probably while it was in the blind spot behind his Tesla's A-pillar. The pickup driver was found responsible for causing the collision, and his insurance provider totaled Charles' 2024 Model 3. He used the settlement to replace it with a 2025 Model 3 with the exact same specifications. Talk about a silver lining. Watch what happened while Ahmed was driving straight through a green light. In the few seconds Ahmed had to react, he slammed on the brakes and swerved to the right, but he wasn't able to prevent a collision. All the airbags in Ahmed's Tesla deployed. Firefighters and paramedics arrived at the scene, but thankfully nobody was seriously hurt. The police immediately declared the other driver responsible since they'd made an unsafe left turn. The other driver's insurance provider accepted full liability. They've offered to pay for repairs, but Ahmed told us he doesn't think the vehicle is safe enough to be driven now. So he's in the process of getting legal representation to help him negotiate with the insurance company. Sergio was driving his Cybertruck down a highway in Lenexa, Virginia. He was following traffic in the passing lane when a Ford driver sideswiped him. The front right tire came off the ground, and when it came down, the vehicle jerked to the right. Sergio didn't have control as he fought to stabilize his pickup. After hitting the grass and nearly entering the tree line, the Cybertruck finally corrected. The Ford didn't though, and it smashed into the trees. Incredibly, nobody was hurt. When Sergio asked the Ford driver what had happened, he explained he hadn't seen the Cybertruck as he hadn't been paying attention. A responding police officer gave the Ford driver some helpful advice. That's why you turn your head. What a novel idea! While the collision totaled the Ford, Sergio's Cybertruck only sustained minor scratches, and he also lost a hubcap. Thankfully, for Sergio anyway, the driver of a Ford pickup found it when the flying hubcap shattered his windshield. What are the chances of a freak collision like this happening? This anonymous submitter was having difficulty using the media controls on his Tesla's screen. Of course, while he was paying attention to adjusting his music, he wasn't paying attention to the road as he started veering toward the shoulder. When he noticed what was happening, he tried to straighten out, but he overcorrected and lost control before sliding into a ditch. Sadly, he was headed straight toward a partially fallen tree, which led to a very destructive collision. Multiple airbags were deployed after his Tesla smashed into the tree. The car automatically called 911 after saving the Teslacam video. It took 30 minutes for a sheriff's deputy to arrive, and since it was cold outside, he let our submitter wait in the back of his patrol vehicle while the Tesla was towed away. Our submitter told us the car's low-voltage battery was totally drained after about 20 minutes without main battery power, in spite of the car's attempts to turn off non-critical systems. He made sure to open the glove box to get his USB drive before the battery fully died. He also retrieved his EDR report from Tesla, which shows that he was traveling at about 30 miles per hour at the time of the impact. At first, he wasn't concerned about the damage, but that's only because he couldn't get a good look at it. Once he and his insurance provider were able to assess the damage, it became clear that the Tesla was totaled. His initial repair quote was for $29,000 US, so his insurance provider decided to offer him a check for $42,500 instead. Before we roll the next video, we need to thank this submitter for faithfully supporting us on Patreon for over a year. We appreciate all our patrons. To see the perks he gets in return, head to patreon.com/whambam.